Hey, Carrie.
Hey Jenna, today I'm excited to show you our new CS Byte over getting started with microbits. So this CS Byte is for all beginners who have maybe never even seen a microbit before, never played with the Make Code platform. This is the lesson that gets you springboarding to success. Like, what does a microbit from out of the box to your first code? What would I do in my classroom? So this is a perfect resource for that need. So in this resource, there's going to be 4 activities that will have a mixture of plugged and unplugged to explore the microbit as a hardware device and then actually have a chance to get some coding. So we will look at those now, going all the way through Make Code, which is the platform that you use to code. Now, just a little bit of a background. When we talk about the microbit is a small microprocessor and it's made by a company called the BBC. So a lot of times you'll see the BBC microbit, and that's just adding the company, the creator to the microbit. So that's just some naming conventions that you'll see throughout. So right away, we're going to get started with introducing your students to the microbit as a piece of hardware and talking about what physically the hardware of the microbit can do, what it has on it, because there are some buttons, there are some lights, and there are some sensors. And so going through this first activity, it allows your students to just simply get it in their hands, unbox it, not connect any wires, don't connect any batteries to it, and just really learn about the device as a piece of hardware. So investing in this time to take it out of the box, maybe even use some magnifying lens because this is a microprocessor. So looking at a magnifying lens on the front side and the back side will really help your students be more creative later if they understand all the things that a microbit can do. So to start teachers off, we have provided a direct link to the introduction of the microbit from the BBC. So this is their kind of like commercial to the product that you could show students or even just familiarize yourself with. So as you're answering student questions and promoting excitement for this device, that you are aware of some of the things that it can do. So again, in this activity right away, we're not connecting it, we're not plugging it in, and you'll know that it's not connected because there's no sounds or there's no lights. The first time you plug a microbit in, it lights up and it beeps. So you want to have this as an awareness that there should be no lights and no sounds. If when you pass it out, you don't even have to pass out that equipment, you can just pass out the device. So a couple of things, BBC provides some really great resources themselves. So we have added in a link to the poster. And so if you display this in your classroom or print it out, this poster has some it points out all of those features. So as I said, students can get to see and have that kind of labeled next to them. Now this, I recommend in this activity to display this because as students kind of go on this scavenger hunt, they're going to have a chance to write it down. So if you give them a copy of the poster and then ask them to do the worksheet, they're just going to look at the worksheet and the poster and copy it over. So a couple of slides that we've given is you have the option to do this digitally if you want to send this out over Google Classroom. And then there's also a printed version. So in this option is students would have the microbit in front of them. You would be talking, and then students could drag and drop and fill in the boxes of the labels, maybe off of what you show on the screen versus the poster, or have maybe a handout or through the video. The answer key is also provided. So you can see there's the pins are not something that I ever asked students in the 4th to 8th grade to know by heart, but there are some of the other ones like the LED or the touch logo. Those are a very good introductory component for students to know. So, and then again, the last thing would be if you wanted this on paper, this was created again by the BBC where you have the like word bank option, and then you have an answer key for teachers yourself. And you can even take it a step further and they provide you with the glossary so that the students have the definitions for that engagement right away so that they're really learning about it. So taking this time again to just go through the pieces and the components, there's also links in here of the videos that BBC has provided to talk through those vocabulary terms of input and output. So as you're talking about like, hey, this is a button on a microbit, you could pause and play this 3-minute video about input and output devices using and specific to the microbit. So they have high quality videos that we just wanted to make sure that they were out there and included. Again, this is your choice as a teacher, whether you play or not, but will help students understand once they jump to the coding platform, the options that they have with the microbit, because it truly is just an amazing little device that allows them to create, but we want to inspire creativity by knowing what it can do. So again, this is just an overview of it unplugged. It includes the vocabulary and those activities linked through. So if you have, again, this is just a complete, easy, unplugged activity to get you started right out of the box and explore it with your students. And it should take about a class period. Then the next day, if you wanted to do this in a progressive order, you definitely could, or you could isolate them and jump around. So the next time, maybe you're not ready to code with your students, but you want your students to actually turn it on and learn the process of your classroom. So if this is the first time you've ever turned on your microbits, the version 2 actually comes with a preloaded program called Meet Your Microbit. Now, just a heads up, if you've never used your microbit, so Jenna, say you used them last year, but you're now just finding this activity for your students, you would have to download or reload this program on there because the students last year, they put their own programs on it. But if this is the first time, then you would just right out of the box, this would work.
Cool.
So that just both of those instructions are here. But in this activity, for this, we're kind of scaffolding the release of how to connect your microbit. So maybe on day 1, it was just that hardware exploration. In this activity, all the students are doing is plugging it in with the battery pack. So we're not using the computer. We're not using the cords to connect the computer. We're not using the coding platform just yet, but we're still able to turn the microbit on and figure out how it works. So in this Meet the Microbit program, here are the steps that walk you through turning it on and what should happen and how the students would engage with it. So when you turn it on, it's going to flash. And as I said, once you know the battery and there's power to it, you're going to get some lights and noises, and that's how you know it's working in your classroom. But it has built-in engagement opportunities for students to start exploring those features. So taking a class period and allowing them to just play with that without having to code it on their own lets them see what happens for each sensor. So it's going to go through and just teach some basics to them. And at that point, you might just reinforce once you've gone through that whole program, now you're investing in the time to how do we take it apart? How do we turn it off? And how do we put it away in class? So these are kind of just bite-sized activities that allow students to feel really engaged with the microbit, but then also allow you on the back end to start establishing and allowing for ample time early on to pass out and collect your supplies, and then that time will decrease as you go through. So this is a great opportunity for students to feel like they played with a microbit and it turned on because the day before they didn't get to turn it on, and now they have a big win. And so that would be activity 2, 1 class period of just getting it out and practicing that while still engaging. And then if you wanted to and you had more time, there is a worksheet that goes along with the whole program. And so again, this is from the BBC, and it's with that Meet Your Microbit program. And it asks what happens and reinforcing the input and the output vocabulary. So Microbit and BBC know what the program is supposed to do. So they're giving you a leading question of what happens with A, and then you're going to have a very specific result. So that's if you have extra time and your students are able to fly through that and you want to build in some checks for understanding or making sure they were really on task and followed all of the steps without just rushing around.
Well,
those are
two really great activities. If you as an educator aren't familiar with microbits or your students aren't, those are some great like scaffolded activities, especially if microbits scare you, because microprocessors are like it's like the mini computers. Like when you open up, right, the desktop computer, it's what you see on the inside. And so it can be a little scary, but I think these are great scaffolded activities to help demystify what it is and what each component is. So cool.
And I think I agree. And a lot of the intimidation sometimes just comes from the amount of supplies or the how do I keep my room controlled while I'm handing out and passing back and have these new devices out. And this is meets the student's satisfaction with turning it on and playing with it while still having the teacher component of, if you wanted to use the worksheet to control that experience and make sure that they're writing something and that you're taking an assessment or making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to. You've got all these supports to doing it right and making sure you're comfortable and the classroom isn't chaotic in handing out all of those things. So I definitely think this is a great flow, as you said.
Yeah, for sure.
So now that the students, if you wanted to come back as day three, or this is the first time that you have, maybe they've seen it before and you want to just talk through Make Code intentionally. Make Code is the platform that students will use to code. And so there are a couple of other platforms, but the BBC really leans into the Make Code platform, and you can use it from any web browser so that students can drag and drop some blocks. And as students get older, there's also some opportunity for JavaScript and Python. And so Make Code is created by Microsoft. So you'll see that Microsoft Make Code. So in this first activity, just like we took some intentional time to learn the physical hardware of the microbit, we're pausing here and learning the lay of the land of Make Code. So in this activity, students will engage in exploring the platform itself. And so what we've created is just this slide of showing your students where things are located and what are they named. So this, when as lessons progress, you might see something like, we'll use your simulator today, and students don't know that term. So in this diagram, you can see that the simulator is the built-in virtual microbit, and then the language of the toolbox would be the middle of where all of the code is hidden in these sub menus. And then you have your workspace and some other features of how do I get back to my project menu? So taking a breath and really saying, like, giving students time to know all of the features is helpful as well. So this was created by Next Tech for you to make that a little bit easier. And then once you go to the Make Code, we've created, oops, it's going to force me to make a copy. So give me just a second to make that copy. And then think about that step. Sorry. We've created a scavenger hunt that now that your students are in Make Code, it's going to ask for where can certain menus be found. So here, all the color, we want them to realize that the colors coordinate to the type of blocks, input blocks and the colors. And here's kind of that answer key or reference. And then it says what color is the if block. And so students would tab over and they would select what color is the if block if they were answering it. And so we've given the answer key in there for each one, but it just gives the students an opportunity to explore those blocks so that you're not fighting the battle as an educator later on and be like, hey, where was that block? So we specifically selected blocks that we know that students will use to build that familiarity with them. And so you can use that as an assessment opportunity so that they know, okay, now that you've checked that box of knowing your code, knowing the location of some of your blocks, now you can get started with creating your own activities. And then we've given some extension that are a couple other hidden features as well as students progress. So now that your students know how to do some things, know the platform, know how to connect the microbit, and they have your local process for handing out and collecting, the last activity is to create a flashing heart animation with just a couple of those blocks that they found. So this is not a very long coding assignment. It gets them a win. And then for this one, it allows them the opportunity to download the program and upload it to their microbit. So that you want to have a simple code that first day that you're teaching your kids to download. And this is a perfect win for that because most of your time that class period will be spent in getting the bugs out of the download process. So this is a win for your students while they're learning that first opportunity to download the program to get on their microbit. And then you can see some exemplars of how to do this flashing heart. And so that brings us to the end of our first kind of mini unit of microbit as you've gotten it out of the box, all the way to coding and downloading your first program. And then at the bottom, we've given some other resources to get you further if you want to keep going in your experience with your students. There's so much that can be done with this cool little device, and we're happy to help you unbox it and get it in students' hands. Any questions, Jenna?
No, these are awesome. I love the scaffolding of the activities and that they're kind of go in a linear pattern, but also if you're familiar with the microbits, you can skip them or whatever. If your students are familiar, this is just a great primer for microbits and kind of showing teachers and students what they are capable of doing, which is awesome.
Well, thanks for joining me today to go over the CS Byte.
Yeah, absolutely. See you next time.
Bye.